Do you ever hear a posh person talk and just automatically assume that they're in charge? Well, that's because it's been woven into the fabric of English society for centuries. From the court system to the government to big business, the elites are in charge by sheer birthright alone. Posh people have a long serpent-like history of holding power in England, and in today's video, we are going to look at the history of how posh people came to dominate England. Our journey begins in 1066 with the Norman Conquest. William the Conqueror didn't just invade England, he fundamentally altered its power structure forever. I'm not saying the Anglo-Saxon system wasn't without its problems, but social mobility was relatively better. When the Normans conquered England in 1066, they brought with them a strict feudal system. A man's role in society was assigned at birth and without contestation. Norman aristocrats also spoke French and held contempt for local customs. Land ownership, titles, and wealth were quickly consolidated into the hands of this new ruling class, who set the foundation for centuries of class inequality. Fast forward to the Magna Carta in 1215, a document hailed as a landmark of democracy. But here's the truth, the Magna Carta was never designed to benefit ordinary people. Instead, it protected the interest of the wealthy barons, ensuring the king couldn't infringe upon their rights. Us common folk are barely even mentioned. Regular citizens remained powerless and under strict feudal control. The Magna Carta established a troubling precedent. Laws would be created and manipulated by the wealthy for the wealthy. If you're interested, by the way, I made a video on the Magna Carta and I will link it in the description, or you can just click here. Go on, click it. Throughout medieval England, the legal system was rigged to keep the rich in power. Land ownership determined status, wealth, and influence, and the law consistently favored the landowning classes. It was like an economic caste system. Commoners faced severe punishments for minor infractions, while the wealthy used legal loopholes to escape accountability for their actions. Trial by ordeal or combat, reserved for nobles, further entrenched their privileges. In medieval England, a lord or a nobleman could just kill a peasant or a serf, and most likely, they would not even face persecution. He might be forced to financially compensate another lord if the killing took place on his territory, but other than that, a noble killing a commoner was pretty much open season. The English poor were viewed as nothing more than commodities by the Norman elites. Now, Tudor England added another layer to this. Power now hinged on your ability to fit into a posh mold. Henry VIII's court was not just about politics, it was a kind of social theatre. You needed the right clothing, dining etiquette, and that silly voice they do that they sound like they're narrating a BBC documentary. Speaking properly and dressing all fancy-like became a symbol that you, sir, are in charge. This excluded anyone who couldn't match these arbitrary standards, no matter how qualified or capable you were. Posh people still do this today. You have to speak and act in their customs to fit in at the upper echelons of English society. They just do mad posh people things that look weird to us plebs. But it really was the British Empire that turbocharged this social dynamic. The empire generated enormous wealth, yet most of it ended up in the hands of a small, privileged elite. The East India Company and other colonial enterprises were effectively elite clubs, extracting resources from the colonies to enrich their shareholders back home. Working-class Britons who actually built the empire and its infrastructure found themselves exploited at home and abroad. Their labour fueling imperial prosperity they rarely benefited from. I cannot stress this enough. Throughout the history of this country post-1066, the vast majority of English people lived in absolute unimaginable poverty. And look, I do need to do a video on Anglo-Saxon England again soon. It's a topic I would love to dig deeper into. Yeah, look, I'm not saying that Anglo-Saxon England was all sunshine and rainbows, but it was definitely better than the Normans. By the Victorian era, Britain's inequality reached grotesque levels. Wealthy Victorians lived lavishly, funded by profits from industrial factories and overseas colonies. At the same time, millions of working-class families suffered in squalid, Dickensian living conditions. Well, in fact, it was Charles Dickens who famously depicted this stark dichotomy. Rich elites enjoying luxury while children work brutal hours in factories, down the mines or up the chimneys, and then had to go home to live in a disease-ridden slum. The Victorian elites didn't just hoard wealth, they manipulated laws to maintain their dominance. Property qualifications ensured only wealthy men could vote or run for parliament. Laws were passed to criminalize poverty. Yeah, that's right. It's illegal to be poor. This led to harsh punishments for vagrancy or begging, while systematically obstructing economic options for these very people. Unionization and protest by workers were often brutally put down by any means necessary. Even when social reforms began in the 19th and 20th century, the legal system continued to favor the posh. Changes like expanding voting rights and introducing welfare measures were constantly resisted or watered down by the upper classes who dominated parliament and the courts. Judges and lawmakers were often from the same elite schools and backgrounds, ensuring their interests were always prioritized. Even today, working class politicians have to dress, talk, and act posh just to get ahead. You have to play a game of deception and lies. Good old honest working men get swallowed up in the parliamentary snake pit. It's like if you had a shiny apple, but you put it in a cesspool of rotten ones. It's gonna get bad, it's just a matter of time. Take land reform, for example. The aristocracy and gentry owned vast tracts of land, yet attempts to redistribute or tax this wealth were repeatedly blocked by Parliament and the judicial system in favour of an income tax, as this would be paid for predominantly by the working class. You see, most rich people don't have income, they have assets. Now, these assets sometimes produce income, yeah, but a tax on income instead of wealth helps the rich get richer and keeps the poor down. Over the generations, wealth and power remained concentrated, untouched by genuine reform, and allowed to grow continuously. It's still like this today. The judiciary remains disproportionately elite, with many judges and top lawyers educated at prestigious institutions such as Oxford, Cambridge, and Eton. These networks create a legal environment biased towards the interests of the wealthy. Corporate and financial crimes often receive lenient penalties compared to minor offences committed by ordinary citizens. George Osborne was sniffed off his face in Parliament on live TV, and no one even talks about it. Allegedly. Christ, I could not take that lawsuit, although it would prove my point. Anyway, this sausage was literally the Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, arguably the most important man in the country, and look at him, but miss a council tax payment or park in the wrong spot, and they're on to you like a hawk. Seriously, what in the hell even is a TV licence? A disproportionate number of British Prime Ministers, MPs, judges, and corporate leaders come from these elite educational institutions. Eton alone has produced 20 Prime Ministers. Now, my school, for example, has produced 20 crackheads. Decisions about crucial social issues, housing, healthcare, and education are frequently made by individuals who are far removed from the realities faced by most people. This class dominance has profound consequences. Housing policies often favour wealthy developers over affordable homes. Education funding perpetuates inequality, while elite private schools receive preferential treatment, like not having to pay taxes as they are registered charities. But Brandon, why are they registered charities? Glad you asked. So every year they let in a few of us plebs who are really smart for free. These students are the smartest ones they could find, and they boost the average grade anyway, making the schools look even better, and no taxes. Healthcare cuts disproportionately impact working class communities, while tax policies continuously protect the wealth of the richest. Now, they are also fine with illegal immigration, as the cheap labour allows them to continue to stagnate the wages of the working classes. Alright, so I don't like to get too political, but challenging this entrenched privilege requires substantial changes. Comprehensive legal reform is essential to ensure laws reflect the needs and the rights of all citizens, not just an elite few. Educational reforms are also crucial, breaking the cycle of inherited privilege and ensuring equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of their background. Fair taxation is another vital component. Closing loopholes that allow the wealthy to evade taxes and implementing a progressive tax policy that can redistribute wealth and resources more fairly. However, achieving these changes means that posh people almost have to voluntarily allow themselves to be taxed. Right, that might be a bit of a struggle, actually. Anyway, the next time you hear a posh accent telling you how things should be run, remember what their ancestors and that attitude did to your ancestors. Britain's history is a story of how a serpent, cowardly class seized power and have slithered their way into keeping it today. If you like the video, please subscribe. If I can get 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to make a special video. Yeah, that's right, a special video. Thank you for watching and have a great day.